Hello, friends. Welcome once again to the Perfect Bound podcast. This is a podcast all about anything and everything comic books and comics related, brought to you by the Panel Jumper and Comics Dungeon. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is Nicole Lamb.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Chris Casso.
Hello.
And, of course, Mr. Cole Hornaday.
Hey, I'm over here at the end of the table. Hello.
Stay at the end.
Hello.
How is everybody this fine evening?
Well, apparently I'm at the end,
I'm caffeinated.
and you're at the beginning.
All right. Well, you know,
And we are ready to go.
Yes, we are supercharged.
we were here just last week.
Yeah.
But it feels like forever since we've been together.
Oh,
Like
so
a whole
long.
month or so.
You're playing fast and loose with the timeline here,
Well-
my friend, and you know it.
I know. We're back from a bit of a self-imposed break. We did have episodes out every week. Thank you for listening if you were listening to the show. But we are back and we're ready to talk about current, upcoming, and noteworthy things. Speaking of noticeable, noteworthy things, what's happening here at the Comics Dungeon, guys?
Yeah. So Nicole's left us.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. She is in charge
It
of
looks
her,
like she's sitting right there.
Oh my God, I'm still here though, as a ghost.
She's in charge of her own comic book store right now.
Yeah.
And
What?
It's Corner Comics down in Kirkland. We've merged with them, and yeah. And we're all working a lot of hours right now.
So if
So,
nobody
yeah.
really understands, Comics Dungeon is basically a nonprofit these days, and the umbrella company is C4C3.org, and C4C3.org has taken over Corner Comics and promoted you to manager.
kind of like that.
Do I
Yeah,
have the
well,
bullet points?
There's lots of entities, I think, floating around. I think Comics Dungeon
Comics
technically...
Dungeon, the nonprofit
Yeah.
that is the Comics Dungeon that is still has to pay taxes, is what has bought Corner Comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
No,
Corner
yeah.
Comics is also now the headquarters of C4C3
Yes.
as far as a physical place for us to put things.
Okay.
So now everyone at home, you can take out your red thread, you know, and you can start the graphs and the
On the
charts
map.
and everything on the maps
Yeah,
and try to
yeah.
figure it out.
and the
means-
But
the
yeah.
last known photographs and things like that.
Exactly.
Oh,
So now I'm pretty much
Exactly.
just the Chris on the east side. You
Okay.
know, I've got the store there is a little bit tinier. It's about half a store.
Webster's breaking things.
And you know, I actually get to reunite with a lot of people who used to come to Comics Dungeon on this side of the water, and tolls came about, and it made it harder, and
Yep.
traffic is terrible, and so people started going to Corner Comics, and now you know I get to see those wonderful people again and reconnect and make the store my own.
That's great.
Yes.
Because if you care, when I first moved to Washington 20 years ago... Swashington, yes. I lived up in Mill Creek, and Corner Comics was in Kenmore then,
Yep.
and that was my shop, and that's where I went for years and years and years. And then the previous owner, Paige Gifford, moved out to Totem Lake, and it did get a lot harder for me to get out there. But honestly, at that point, I was kind of done with comics. I
Yeah,
was
you were
down
in a
to a very
burnout
minimum.
phase.
I would come into
Yeah.
this store. Chris and I got to be friends through working on the Team of Heroes trilogy through Annex Theater, and that's how Ben and I got to be friends. And then you and I had been pals for years, but you got the job here, so it just kind of was a natural flow for me to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I mean, in real time, how long have you been helming that store?
Since October 1st.
Since October 1st.
I'm just going to say that because I'm not counting.
Yes,
It's been many days.
Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of changes have already happened over at Corner. I'm just shifting the whole store around,
All right.
upheaving everything. But so far, I've had a lot of positive reactions to the store. I'm bringing in a lot of different inventory that wasn't there before. It was very superhero based. It's still superhero based, but it also we have Image. We have a manga section. We'll have European stuff eventually. Definitely going to still push my agendas over there and see how much they fly. One of our box customers who used to be box 110 at Comics Dungeon, his name's Jeff. I think he listens to the podcast. He's now my new best friend, and
There you
he's very excited for the change, and I hope to push many comics on him. So if you hear this, Jeff, be ready.
So
Be prepared.
yourself.
Prepare yourself and your
Yeah.
budget.
So if one lives on the east side of Lake Washington here in northwest
It's
corner,
Washington.
Washington.
where is Corner
Man,
Comics?
I knew
What's
you
the
were
address?
going to do that to me.
It's near the Totem Lake
It's
thing.
it's exit for 116th, And somebody stall for me? Anybody?
If you have a Google Maps, you could do this yourself.
So while she looks up that address, Chris, you want to tell us about some events that are coming up here at Comics Engine?
We do have coming up on the 27th, which is a Saturday, Halloween Comic Fest. And we will be handing out many, many, many free comics. Many for kids, but many for adults. And we'll probably have some sales stuff going on. I've yet to decide yet, but things will happen. And so it's always the Saturday right before, or if Halloween actually lands on it every year. So it's like clockwork, like Free Comic Book Day.
Halloween's like a Wednesday this year or something weird. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on down, get some free comics. There's some good previews. I think there's the Junji Ito Frankenstein preview, which is going to look good.
Yes.
And some other odd choices. But yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the collection will be out by that time, too. So if you like that Frankenstein book, I think it's coming out
pretty soon.
In real time next week for us. So if you want to come visit me at Corner Comics, you can come to 12049 124th Avenue in Kirkland, Washington, 98034. And we're open 11 to 7 every day except Sunday, which we close at 5 on that day. And you'll either see me, Rob, Phil, or Leanne, because Leanne is now between 2 stores.
Yes,
Ooh, that's a heck of a commute.
Yes.
She's our mule for getting supplies back and forth. So she was okay with us calling her that. So
yes, we checked in with her.
That's good.
Double checked.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, congratulations, Nicole.
Thank you.
We're going to miss you here at Comics Engine, but it's a bright new chapter.
It was very difficult to leave 7 years here.
For clarification, we are still podcasting with her. We're not kicking her off as of this episode.
Yeah. And this is where I say goodbye forever. You'll never see me again.
GTFO.
No, you're still going to get my queer agenda and everything pink and glittery and
All right.
macabre.
Excellent.
You're welcome.
Cool. All right, let's get on with the show, friends, shall we? Some news came out that the Valkyries, which is an organization that Nicole is a part of, had to call it a day. Do you want to fill us in on what's going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, the short story of it is that they started out as just kind of a networking group, and it grew and grew and grew, and then there wasn't really the infrastructure in place to really moderate a large amount of people that were there. And then there was also a problem with the mission, because it was like, were we a political group? Were we not a political group? Were we just for networking? You know, what were we? And unfortunately, there was a lot of bad blood that happened between other Valkyries. There were some people who were probably racist. And, you know, it doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter, you know, where you come from. Sometimes that just still happens. And even in a group where people are trying to be empowering, it just got too big for its britches. There was moderators who had full-time jobs, owned comic book stores. They were trying to get more stuff in there to try to be supportive and stuff. And I think things just went haywire. That wasn't really a short story. Anyway,
but concise.
Yeah. So there was an article that came out last fall, 2017, of a previous Valkyrie, who talked about her story and what she experienced. And she said that as a person of color, she was constantly shut down in conversations. And she felt that the Valkyries would, and I say the Valkyries as just an entity, were... like when the Make Mine milkshake came out with Marvel, with the execs going out for, or whoever they were, who were going out for milkshakes, it seemed like we championed them, but we wouldn't always champion other people. And notably, to what this person said in her article, she didn't notice enough championing of people of color when things would come up for them. So there was, I think there was a lot of blind spots. There was a lot of things that just systematically went wrong with the Valkyries. And unfortunately, it did... they thought it was best to just disband everybody. They left, I think, the group up for a while so people could create their own groups. And it was one of those things where it was like, make it very clear what your next group is. Kind of learn from this experience. And I'm not saying everybody was racist, because that would include me as well. And I'm actually championing for a lot of people. I just think that sometimes sometimes you can be a nasty person on the internet, and especially when you don't know people or you have your own perspectives. And I think that just run amok, just like it runs in any other group that grows really big.
Right.
You know, you can't always vet everybody. You can't always see who's coming in. And I know with the Valkyries, there were a lot of times people were trying to sneak in because it was like, it's a secret lady group. What's going on in there? And, you know, people just thought it was just, we were, I don't know, dancing around fires naked or something like that. I don't know.
Wait, what? You weren't?
Yeah. Witches in the forest at night. So it's unfortunate to see those things happen. I was very disappointed by that. And I think it's just something that you learn from and you move forward and you try to do better next time. You know, because I think that the Valkyries did a lot of things right, as well as they did some things wrong. And, you know, just try to be a better person going forward. You know, it's my tip of the day. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Well, maybe sometime in the not too distant future, there will be a similar group that helps championing women of color.
There's a lot of things that have been popping up outside of this.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of good that's coming out of the wake of something really negative. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, speaking of people being jerks on the internet, at the last San Diego Comic-Con, it was announced that Chelsea Cain would return to writing for Marvel with The Vision, a 6-issue miniseries that was scheduled to arrive on shelves on November 7th. Well, guess what? Marvel canceled it, and Chelsea Cain has no idea why. She's just as confused as you are.
Yeah.
Well, why did that happen? Nobody knows.
No. Well, so the paper thin excuse that I read was that because the book's going to star the Vision and his daughter from Tom King's run of the Vision previously, and they weren't quite sure what she was going to do would line up with the continuity of what was going to happen with the Vision's daughter in the larger frame of the Marvel universe.
Which is really just a lot of horse hooey.
Paper thin.
Because,
Paper thin.
you know, if you've got a sustainable imaginary universe like Marvel does, those stories can exist and overlap and exist out. So we know all of these things.
Yeah.
My understanding is that she's a very outspoken person on social media, and that we're seeing more and more that the big publishers are concerned about how their artists, who are freelancers and not under any type of corporate contract, are representing the corporation's interests. We're seeing it a lot more and more that people are going to, if they're getting in conflicts and Twitter wars with people, they might lose their job or they might lose their gig.
It's PR stuff,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you don't want somebody who works for your company, no matter in what capacity, to be just going on flame wars on Twitter.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm offended that these artists have had their gigs pulled out from underneath them. But at the same time, if I was the boss, I don't know. I don't know how I'd handle it. If I was the editor-in-chief, how I'd handle that. Because I'm not going to be the person that's going to waggle my finger and say, you can't express yourself. And,
Right.
But there's better ways to handle it.
There are better ways to handle it. Also, it's like, after all this time, are we really still going to get in Twitter fights with people who, mine their knowledge off the internet itself?
Chelsea Cain is she's what's the word I'm trying to say? She has had that instance before where she has fanned the flames of toxic masculinity on the internet.
Yep.
And
you talking about the Mockingbird series?
But the Mockingbird series. Yeah. And there was an incident recently. Was it Mark Waid or who was it that was fired from his book? Chuck Wendig.
Yeah. The guy that was writing
recently.
Darth Vader.
Yeah, he recently was kicked off these Star Wars books, probably because of just Twitter and fans being mean towards him.
Yeah. But he's stepped up. I mean, and I don't know. I don't live in that world. I don't get into this. I mean, I barely even get in discussions anymore with people on Facebook. It's just not.
You barely get discussions with people in real life, sir.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true, and you know it. I would rather have a face-to-face conversation with someone. I'd rather look them in the eye, which is a big, from my perspective, is a big issue with a lot of this. It's like if you were looking somebody in the eye, I don't think you'd be saying those things to them. I think you'd be choosing your words and choosing your position. That's just my, human perspective on thing, my hope. But, I live in a world of silliness and delusion.
Well, so if you want to support Chelsea, you can go over to Image and read her Man-Eaters series.
Which I have not done yet. Did you read it?
I did.
Or were you going to review it or?
No, I didn't have a copy for review on that.
Okay.
I was okay with the book.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Okay. And is it an ongoing or is it a mini? It's called Man-Eaters, right?
Yes. I think it's ongoing for now.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing a cut date on it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, it's got a funny setup and an interesting setup, but the pacing of it didn't do much for me on the first issue.
Okay.
But that's just first issue pacing. So,
All right. Well, it's just another instance of us just wagging our fingers at people saying, don't be a jerk on the internet.
yeah. Good luck with that.
Be careful what you say on the internet, too, because it could come back to bite you. We see that time and time again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Just be careful. Be careful out there, kids.
It's forever.
In a previous episode, we talked about Buffy, the license for Buffy being removed from Dark Horse. Well, they've landed at Boom, which is just what we thought, which is what Chris mentioned during our recording.
Felt like this is a place.
Yeah.
So Dark Horse has lost most of their intellectual properties that once, that they built the foundation of that company on. What are they? They lost
Aliens and Predators.
They still have
Terminators.
Aliens.
So.
Yeah. Are you reading those books?
Actually, I did read the last couple. They were
Oh,
good.
you did? Oh, because I got bored.
And
with
they
those
got the
a
William
long
Gibson one
time.
coming up.
Yep.
Which one is that?
The William Gibson Aliens.
This is adaptation.
Oh, that's
Alien
right. The
adaptation.
wooden
Yep.
spaceship one.
Yeah.
The unproduced script.
With,
That's right.
I think, was
Joss
it Johnny
Whedon.
Christmas?
Johnny Christmas is
Which
doing
I
it.
love Johnny Christmas. He's
So they're
great.
going to bank on that
Oh, I
franchise.
forgot
as
about
much as
that.
they can.
Yeah, I am curious about that because there was so much discussion about that back in the day, and then when we wound up with Alien 3, and we're like, "Ow, what are you doing to us?"
That's okay. They could just focus all their energy on making sure Berserk is always in print and in
Okay.
stock.
Yes,
They just want to do that. That's
They
fine.
should.
But also, Buffy the series is going to be seeing a reboot too.
Correct.
And it's still kind of a lot of speculation whether it's going to be the original characters or if it's going to be stories that are about the all the army of slayers that we saw in the last seasons of the TV series. And
It might be. I get the feeling that they're going to go full franchise movement and have Boom start a brand new continuity.
oh, okay.
Yeah. It just feels that way.
Excuse me. Do you think that'll be reflective of the TV series?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Whenever you get a franchise move over, it's probably because somebody wants everything to be.
My sandbox.
That too, yeah. There's a particular word I'm trying to think of the synergy. The synergy.
Yep.
They want to get that going for it. So I just kind of get the feeling we'll see a complete, because otherwise why go back to step one?
Well, I mean, there's a part of me that would love to see Sarah Michelle and the Scooby Gang back at it, but not for an ongoing series.
Yeah.
Not for a reboot.
Maybe a short graphic novel.
Well, I mean the actors, the actual stories. Because I miss those. I miss those characters.
Chris is not into it.
Xander's in a bad place in life
Yeah,
right
he
now.
is.
We're
Well,
not gonna
maybe
get
that's
him.
what he needs to get out of that. Get out of his pokey.
Maybe.
No, he's had a tough time.
Pokey?
Is he in prison?
No, he has some serious substance abuse issues. I think they had to ban him from. He's not invited to conventions anymore and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't stop some other people from showing up.
Oh,
at
no,
conventions.
No, but
There's
he's
a lot of
like
people with
burned.
problems.
My understanding is he's burned bridges. He's been so out of control. So
I remember most of his stuff sounding the same as the Screech from Saved by the Bell. It's like life didn't go a good way after a certain point.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's
moving on.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, look for a new revamped Buffy at Boom.
And Firefly and Serenity.
Yep.
And Firefly and Serenity.
Those are
the
confirmed.
whole Whedonverse is at Boom now.
Yeah. All right. Apparently, Martian Manhunter has been really underappreciated lately because IO9 says he's getting getting the spotlight that he deserves in a new series from Steve Orlando. It's going to be a 12-issue series that will delve into the mysteries of John's life. Is that how you pronounce it?
John Jones.
John Jones. John, or just John. John.
Just say
It really
John.
depends.
There's an apostrophe
because, like,
there.
In one of the animated series, they just clearly pronounced it John Jones, and then other times it's been John Jones. Yeah, there's apostrophes. Ignore those.
All right. Well,
It's pretty fun to say with the apostrophe, though.
Of course it is.
John
Jones.
Anyway,
do we think Martian Manhunter deserves his time in the spotlight?
Yeah. There was back in the 80s and 90s, John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake would take over a solo book and explore the ever-living crap out of the character. And once they did it with the Spectre, and it was one of my favorite series. They explored every possibility. They breathed new life into that character, and then they did it with Martian Manhunter, which was one of my favorite series. I think it ran for close to 3 years.
Yeah, it's like 50-something issues.
And I was looking back at him going, no one's ever been able to give this character. I'm with the IO9 article. I think that when with the subsequent the repetitive reboots of the DC universe, John keeps getting pushed further and further down because there's this crummy attitude about John Jones and that he's like an alien version of Superman. Because why have him on the Justice League? Because he can be invisible, he can stretch, he just borrows all of his powers from all these other superheroes, and he's nothing original about him. I'm like, no, you need to read the Ostrander series because they really did explore this alien being who struggles to find connection with people, and they found this beautiful heart and soul for him through the Justice League series in the 80s, and he was addicted to Oreo cookies, and
he was great in the Justice League cartoon.
So I am actually looking forward to this series, Ben Lawrence.
I forget which writers said it, but it's they basically made it a point that he's the heart of the Justice League, and so when New 52 happened, guess who was missing?
Yep.
And the whole 52 felt like it was a shallow, horrible thing.
Well, they essentially replaced him with Cyborg, which never made any sense to me, other than the fact that they needed to have a person of color on the team, and I get that.
If they felt like it was an issue of hitting a quota, which it should never be,
right?
But they should put Jon Stewart in there then.
I agree.
Just go full cartoon.
Which they did with the animated series.
And they just did with the current Justice League, which is just like they looked at the animated series and be like, oh, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because that's good.
Yep.
So, yeah.
You definitely want a John on your team. So, what do you think about this new version of Martian Manhunter?
It looks like it could be fun because they have an interesting artist choice for it.
They do.
Because this is Riley Rosmo.
Yeah, very interesting.
Orlando, I think, must be my exact same age, and he is doing this thing at DC where he's bringing back the 90s and early 2000s, and I normally would be like, yeah, about that, but he does it in weird ways, and I think it's because his hands are tied with continuity crap. And so I'm just nervous because I'm like, what you gonna do there, Steve? What you doing? But I think he's he's excited to do it. So that's a good sign, So
All right.
What weird obscure character is he going to throw in this comic?
And normally I'm okay with that. It's just that he's done weird things with those weird obscure characters. I'm like, I don't know.
So it's a real wait and see for you.
Real wait and see for me.
Well, you'll have to wait until December. That's when Steve Orlando's Martian Manhunter will drop to a retail store near you. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't get our subterfuge at the early onset of the show, we've been we took a bit of a break, and so now that we're back, we need to acknowledge some people that have left us. First off is actor Scott Wilson, who we probably know as Herschel from The Walking Dead. He passed away. He was 76.
Yeah, I was surprised about that, even though he's an older man, but still.
Yeah. Herschel is one of my favorite parts of the early Walking Dead.
Yeah, he's great.
And I was really sad when they killed him off. Spoilers, but I'm sure if you're still watching the show, you know this.
late.
That was back when they were doing a relatively decent job of sticking to the storyline, or coasting with the storyline from the comics.
Well, they filled Herschel in the Dale role because when I was reading
Right.
the comic, I loved Dale. I thought
Right,
he was the heart kind of in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. He was
You're
like-
right. Forgive me. I was thinking of
But
Dale,
that's okay
not
because there's
Herschel.
like two token old
Yeah.
white dudes,
Yep.
so it's like you could kind of interchange them. Yeah.
And
What Nicole said, what Cole didn't say. How's that?
And
There you go, whatever.
They had to fill the Dale role with Herschel because
Yes.
the actor who played Dale wanted out.
Right.
Oh, is that why? I never heard that.
That's
was-
well,
Oh,
because
that's interesting. He's like, just kill me. I'm good.
Yeah, famously in the second season, AMC they got rid of Frank Darabont. They
Yeah.
cut the budget. They increased the episode numbers, and they brought on this other showrunner who basically didn't like the show. And so all the actors there were basically being underpaid because they were doing it as a favor to Darabont.
And the guy who's
Wow.
Dale is a Darabont man.
Yeah.
Because he's in every Darabont movie ever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost
Learned something
everyone.
new tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah, go watch The Mist. Dale's right there.
yeah,
Original film, not the TV series.
Yeah.
The TV series is.
Also, we lost Carlos Ezquerra. He co-created Judge Dredd. He was 70 years old.
The thing about him is that you go back and look at. I've never been a super Judge Dredd fan.
Works for me.
But the barren earth, the mega city, he designed all of that, and so it was a very consistent look in those old 2000 AD comics, down to the costuming, the big clunky boots and the knee pads and the helmets, and he designed all that, and then Brian Bolland improved upon that, but it was one of the early times where you had a really consistently designed universe that stories took place in. I'll leave it to the Brits to teach us that.
And one of the best things about him is everybody had the deepest grimace to the point where
Oh,
they
yeah.
look like a Muppet.
Yeah,
And-
their scowls were like gouged in
Oh,
their
it's
faces.
like a
and stuff.
pure,
Yeah.
So I will always love him for having the grumpiest characters in comics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. And he was born in Zaragoza, Spain, and lived in Andorra, though he reportedly got his start working for an English publisher in Barcelona. So this article from Comics Beat says, fans, no doubt, will raise a margarita. So if you drink margaritas, raise your margarita for Carlos
take a
Ezquerra.
margarita.
So I take back the comment. I take back the comment I made about leaving it to the Brits and leave it to the Spaniards.
All right. And finally, most notably, Norm Breyfogle
Right.
passed away. There's a quote here. Ask members of a certain generation to picture Batman, and odds are pretty good they'll picture a Norm Breyfogle drawing.
The Batmobile toy that came with the Superpowers collection was clearly based on Norm Breyfogle. This clean lines and the little triangular eyes for the lamps and stuff. But am I mistaken? Breyfogle was doing a lot of Batman books in the Tim Burton era. So we had this Tim Burton look happening in the 80s from the films, but Breyfogle had this very unique, clean, crisp lines, sharp angles that he was doing with the Batman books.
Yeah.
Fancy capes.
He,
Fancy capes.
From 87 to 93
Right.
is when he
Yeah,
was on
that would be
Batman.
it.
So yeah, he was the Batman artist I grew up with. Yeah.
He was only 58.
It's really, and he had a stroke and was unable to work. Like 3 years ago, I had a stroke.
That sounds right.
But to be that young and have a stroke is terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, he suffered a stroke in 2014. So, so go
Go pick up some trade paperbacks with
Go-
him
Yeah.
and
go pick up,
just
It's not hard to
read
find his
up.
work. It's
Yeah,
everywhere.
He was
It's
everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a sad thing. A lot of people might be able to visualize him, but they might not think of the name because DC
Right.
never really pushed him as a big deal at any point.
He did a couple independent things that were wonderfully bizarre, like the Metaphysique was. It started out as an anthology that I think he headlined, and then it was like this metaphysical superhero story that never really made any sense to me. But I bought it anyway because it was Norm Breyfogle.
Right.
I have to go dig those up now and go back and look at them.
So if you drink bat juice, raise a glass of bat juice to Norm Breyfogle. Let's move on to book report, everybody.
Wait, like authentic or just in a Batman glass?
Nicole, let's start with you. What do you want to tell us about?
All right. Well, we're talking about Batman. I read this cute little book last night. That's Mad Presents "Don't Let the Penguin Drive the Batmobile." It's 100% unauthorized parody. Words by Jacob Lambert and pictures by Tom Richmond. And it's one of those meta books for kids that is the Penguin really wanting to ride in Batman's Batmobile and trying to convince the person who's reading to let him drive the Batmobile. And it kind of reminded me of the Sesame Street book where it was like Grover trying to convince you to not turn the page because there's monsters or something like that.
The monster at the end of this book.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't as pleading. Like the Penguin is a little bit more playful about it. Like, come on, what if I just do this? What if I just do that? But I found it online on my library app, and I just thought, like, I just ordered this for Corner Comics. It just looks so cute. So I think if you have like a super young one, probably under 5 years old or something like that you like to read books to, and they like Batman or the Batman verse, this is a super fun, cute little book. It's not that long, so, your kid might say, like, read it again. Or you could just say, nope, it's done, goodbye, and go to sleep. But it's a really cute one. There's also another one that Mad presents called Goodnight Batcave, and there's another one that's the Superman and the Miserable, Rotten, No Fun, Really Bad Day. And they're just these fun little parodies on some of the books that we've known and loved over the years. So I would definitely recommend it. It was just very cute, very whimsical. And fun.
Does Penguin have the Penguin Pal throughout the entire book?
Yes.
Penguin Pal?
Yes.
He's got a little penguin guy.
Oh, he does have a penguin, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there was one point where it was something like, you're just going to drive to the zoo and try to hypnotize all the penguins and, take them with you or something like that. And he was like, no, I'm not. And then you see like the other penguin just like mesmerized, like already mesmerized about it. And then you're like, no, I just want to ride the Batmobile. So that was a cute one. It was a fun one. And I always like having some kids' books available to recommend. And these ones are great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you, Nicole. Chris Cassell, what do you got for us?
I read the first issue of a new Image series called Dead Rabbit by Jerry Dugan and John McCree and Mike Spicer. And it's an interesting setup. Basically, during like the early to mid 90s, there was a bank robber named the Dead Rabbit who became infamous throughout the media for stealing from everybody, the banks, the mob, pretty much everybody. And then he disappeared. And you get an exposition dump at the beginning and a really good setup, and it's like, there we go, whole world set up. And then it just turns out that he retired with all the money and he's living at home with his wife, and he just goes out golfing. But it turns out that he's not really golfing. He used all the money a little while ago, and his wife has medical needs, so he's working at Walmart. And one day at Walmart, some creepy guy has like a cart full of all the ingredients you need to get rid of a body. And so he starts following the guy, and he follows him to this kind of abandoned house. And the guy is a serial killer and was going to kill a few girls. So he saves the girls, calls the cops, gets the hell out of there. And now people know that he's active again, and that's not a good thing. And that's it's all set up. It's got a little bit of a Dexter feel to it. I've always liked John McCree. He did The Demon and Hitman with Garth Ennis, and he also did Dix with Garth Ennis. Sometimes he's like a little too fluid and messy. He's really tightened it on this one, and it just really works for the tone of the world that they're in and the crime the sense that they're giving you. So very good, solid first issue, like just well executed. I really liked it.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Dead Rabbit. Thanks, Chris. And finally, Cole Hornaday, what do you got for us?
Well, I picked up Anna Seni's entry into the Burger books from Dark Horse called The Seeds. It's written by Nocenti and drawn by David Aja. And this is if this is any indication what the Burger books are going to be like, all told, this is a brilliant entry. This is a dark and grim, and frankly terrifying look at the future that's just very close to us. It's a story. It's paced and it looks like a noir detective story. I would call it actually almost noir drama. It's black and white and green washed, which I think is a really interesting choice. There's two characters that you I read the first two issues. I don't recall how long it's going to run. Oh, 4. It says right there. And it's the story of Astra, who is a hard-boiled detective or hard-boiled reporter, and Lola, who I'm not quite sure who she is. Lola's plan is to escape over the wall to the Luddite community that lives without, obviously, technology. The world is polluted. Everything is dying. People wear gas masks, and Lola is she's so physically weakened by the pollutants in the environment that she rides in a wheelchair. But she's fallen in love with this mysterious figure on the other side of the wall, who we learn in the second issue bears a striking resemblance to a gray alien. And these gray aliens are actually harvesting organs from the people who live on the other side of the wall. So there's a lot of layers going on. That the illustration, Aja's illustrations are absolutely fascinating. Sometimes it goes from 9, sometimes it's 8, 6 grids, panels rather. And it is, it reminds me of reading the Margaret Atwood Matt Adams series, which just scared the ever-living crap out of me because it was so close to the bone as far as the destruction of our environment and political corruption and essentially the fall of culture and humanity. But it also reminds me a little bit of the Russian film, the Tarkovsky film, The Stalker, which is, this bizarre world where at some point aliens visited us and left us their technology that we can't figure out. So people go to these places where time is all messed up and to try to gather the artifacts that these aliens left behind. It feels like that too. As I've complained about in the past, I usually don't like to read miniseries. I'd rather wait to get the collected edition. I'm actually really glad I picked up the first issue and going to keep reading it. It is a pretty dark story, but but it puts you in some perspective that I think that I'm not going to speak for anybody else but myself, but I need this perspective right now. So,
all right. The Seeds. Thank you, Cole.
Thank you.
Well, that is Book Report, and that is our show. Coming up is quiz time. But before we go, I want to tell you that the Perfect Bound podcast is brought to you by the Panel Jumpers. See everything Cole Hornaday and I do at thepaneljumper.com, as well as a Comics Dungeon here at 319 Northeast 45th Street in beautiful downtown Wallingford, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at comicsdungeon.com. Subscribe to the show on iTunes or however you get your podcasts at perfectboundpodcast.com. Send us an email, perfectboundpodcast@gmail.com. And now, friends, get your quiz hats on. It's quiz time, and this week the questions come to us from me.
What?
And I'll admit that I totally forgot that I didn't write any quiz time questions until now.
Man, this is the nightmare I always have. It's like, am I doing quiz? I think, yeah.
Yeah, we all have that.
We all have that.
Or did I leave my notes at home?
We could always edit it out.
Yeah. I finally.
That's right. We live in magic reality.
I finally remembered that about 2 hours ago that I had to write some questions. So I started watching Doctor Who again so I can catch up because I'm excited for the new series. So here are 5 questions about the 5 actors who have played the Doctor in the modern era, which is 2005 to present. Number 1. Christopher Eccleston's tenure as the Doctor was the shortest lived in the modern era at only 1 series. Eccleston played this ruler of the Dark Elves in Thor: The Dark World.
Malekith?
Yes, okay. Malekith is correct. Number 2, David Tennant wielded the Doctor's sonic screwdriver for 4 series and is often the front runner for favorite Doctor portrayal of the modern era. Tennant donned this villain's attire during season 1 of Netflix's Marvel's Jessica Jones.
Kilgrave the Purple Man.
Indeed. Number 3, Matt Smith also spent 4 seasons as the Doctor, and trust me, he eventually grows on you. Smith is rumored to have a role in the 9th film installment of this storied franchise. What episode 9 is coming out?
Oh, the Star Wars
Yeah,
stuff?
the Star Wars movie.
Oh, he's in the Star Wars?
It's the war that exists in the stars.
Number 4. Peter Capaldi has had the most Doctor Who screen time of all the Doctors before actually becoming the Doctor, guesting on the Fires of Pompeii episode during the David Tennant era and having a recurring role in the Doctor Who spin-off Torchwood. You'll be able to hear Capaldi's voice as Rabbit in the upcoming live-action film adaptation of this A.A. Milne property.
Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the...
I'm going to give it to you. The movie's called Christopher Robin, but yes, you're...
It's Winnie
in the
the...
right
It should
place.
be about Winnie the Pooh, because nobody really cares about adult
right.
Christopher Robin, right?
No.
Indeed.
But, I mean, apparently we're going to have to after this. But, yeah.
And finally, number 5, Jodie Whittaker is the first non-white male to assume the role of the Doctor in the latest series, and it only took 55 years. Whittaker starred with Star Wars actor John Boyega in this 2011 sci-fi comedy about a South London neighborhood undergoing an alien invasion.
Attack the Block.
Indeed, we were just talking about that before
Yeah,
the show today.
we cheated.
All right, well, that is quiz time, and that is our show. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Woo-hoo!